If the light's on, flight's on. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to say, if you haven't already, it's time to stop singing the bye-week blues. Week 6 is upon us, and it's time to get ready for the stretch of the season. Hopefully the Chargers will be in one piece, well, as much as they possibly can. Hopefully a lot of guys are recovered. We've seen a few back now from injury. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. But y'all know who I be, Mr. TOP_FLYT3, and welcome to this week's edition of IG50I. That's right, I got 5 on it. So let's get into the proceedings this evening. With an extra week now in the books behind us, and some opportunity for guys to not only have gotten some rest and relaxation and recovery, 3 R's, but hopefully Greg Roman has taken that opportunity with the rest of the brain trust, namely Mark Trestman and Marcus Brady, to come up with a viable game plan to go against this vaunted Denver Broncos defense, because it's not going to be an easy task. I would like to see, namely, Justin Herbert get a little bit more opportunity to cook. For lack of a better phrase, help 10 help you. We know that we see this offense as wanting to be one that is a run first, which you don't necessarily have all the pieces to do successfully on a consistent basis. I'm talking about the interior of that offensive line, like your tackles are good. But let's switch up those early down tendencies. Maybe get it started with a couple quick passes as an extension of the run game. Switch things up, a la the opening of the Kansas City Chiefs game, that first scoring drive. Things look perfect. I mean, those first 10 to 15 scripted plays were amazing. After that, everything went to hell for different reasons, of course. A lot of it had to do with down and distance, falling behind the sticks due to penalties. Y'all know the story. But I would love to see more QJ and Ladd get the bubble screens going, just the screen game in general, because the strong suit of your wide receiver core, as things stand currently, is that you have 2 dudes that can really make it happen with the pill in their hands after the catch. So let them do what they do best. Don't ask Justin Herbert to drop back 5 to 7 steps consistently, because even though your tackles are back, well, Joe Alt definitely. Rashawn Slater, I think, was still limited at practice, so we'll see. Justin Herbert's still dealing with that high ankle sprain, and you don't want to subject him to more pressure and hits than necessary. So put him in pistol, put him in shotgun. I like pistol more because you have the opportunity for the 2-way go. When you line up in shotgun with one running back to either side of you, it's kind of a tell, especially if you're trying to run the ball, because technically you can only run in one direction unless you run a counter or something like that. But yeah, that's what I want to see. Let 10 get the pill out of his hands, let him distribute, and hopefully he can throw for more than 180 yards this game. I mean, if necessary. I just want the win. So I'm not really looking at a specific number, so I take that back. I don't care if he throws for more than 180, although it is a little embarrassing that the dude has just over 500 yards passing, and Kirk Cousins did that in essentially one game last week. But I digress. But of course, the foundation of this offense is the running game. And we've got to talk about that a little bit more, because it's quite possible that the bus may be out of service. I don't know what's going on with Gus. Initially, I attributed it to him not having a lot of run during camp and whatever injury he was dealing with this offseason that we still have no earthly idea about, because that info has not leaked to this point, not that I'm aware of at least. But look, I'm going to give Gus, even if he's active this week, because I don't really know that he will be. Looks like he's been on the injury report and hasn't practiced to this point at the time that I'm recording this. But if he does play this week, I'm going to give him one more week to show something, or else you're going to have to park that bus, man. Put it in the lot, change the oil. I don't know, maybe he needs an engine tuning. I don't know. I ain't the car guy. That's my dad. But at this point, it might be time to consider the rookie, Kamani Vidal, giving him some spin. I personally feel like, just kind of based on the way that this offensive line is constructed, because of the interior being such a weakness, you may need more agile running backs that can make things happen. Say, for instance, if the blocking isn't perfect, because J.K. Dobbins has shown the ability to do that, someone who has a little bit more lateral explosiveness, quickness, and can make a guy miss or 2. That ain't Gus. He's more of a straight downhill runner, and things pretty much have to be perfectly blocked in order for him to make any real significant runs. And even as a thumper, the problem is with those guys, they have to get about 2 or 3 steps going downhill to build up that momentum to create enough force to drive guys backwards. Otherwise, they could be rendered almost useless. And the problem is, because the interior offensive line is so shaky, Gus can't really get going. Now, I'm not going to blame it all on the interior. Gus has missed some holes, but really and truly, because of the design of the offense right now and the guys that are super inconsistent on the inside, it doesn't help him out a ton. So yeah, if Gus doesn't go this week, I expect to see more Kamani Vidal, and I would not be surprised if he shows out, even against this Broncos defense, who really likes to blitz a lot, especially on first down. Kamani's got the ability to make it happen on his own. So the combination of both him and JK could be pretty dangerous. So we just have to wait and see what this end of week injury report looks like. But I'm excited about it. I like the prospects of it. Kamani Vidal, or should I say I was a big Kamani Vidal fan here during this draft cycle. So it'd be nice to see him get some burn. Have to wait and see how things go, though. All right, so fam, at the tight end position, we may just have to throw something at a wall and see what sticks. Stone Smart cannot be worse than Hayden Hurst is as a receiving option to this point. Like, the tight ends are such a huge component, typically like our staples of the Greg Roman offense. Like, if you look back with the 49ers here, Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker. With the Ravens, Mark Andrews, who's fallen off a cliff here recently. Curious to see what happens coming up here at the trade deadline, but a few weeks away from that, so let's not get our hopes up too much, but it could happen. Also, even that 2009 Stanford Cardinals team that boasted like Kobe Fleener and Zach Ertz when Roman was the tight ends and running game coordinator under Harbaugh. Tight ends have always been important to this offense, specifically in the running game, but definitely as weapons in the passing game. And right now, the Chargers don't have that. I mean, as of right now, Will Dissly is leading all Chargers tight ends with 85 yards receiving, which is ridiculous when you consider, like, this was the dude who was essentially signed to be a sixth offensive lineman. And he right now has more yards receiving than the guy that was assumed to be the pass catching threat at the position. What? Maybe, hopefully, a couple guys had their own personal come to Jesus moments during the bye week and sat with themselves, became a bit more self-aware, and feel like they now know their role. And you know, it kind of comes across as if I'm bagging on the dude because I've called him out now for the last few weeks. But in all honesty, if you paid attention, if you remember correctly, Darius Davis was one of my favorite picks in the last draft cycle. And I said that he would be a huge contributor. He may account for a couple of wins last season. And I think I don't feel like he made a liar out of me. I mean, I'm talking about a dude who was a second team all-pro returner last year. But right now, it feels like he might need to charter one of Elon's SpaceX joints and fly on out to Moron Mountain to jack his powers back from the Monstars, because I have no idea what's going on this season. As I said before, second team All-Pro last year. He was near or at the top of the league with the 16-yard per return average. This year, he's at sort of kind of like you want to call it paltry, just over half of that at 9 yards per return. Don't quite understand it. The decision making seems to have gone in the tank, and he's become almost a net negative, which you can't have. And until his team can unlock like a somewhat consistent passing game, field position is going to be paramount, especially in knockdown drag out games like the one that will probably take place on Sunday against the Broncos, which is right up Jim Harbaugh's alley. But solid special teams contributions are what can tip the scales in games like these, and can help you squeak out a close win. So 2 words: hidden yardage. And at this point, I don't know what his contributions are going to be on the offensive side of the ball. DJ Chark, still not a go quite yet, and Darius Davis is just not used as a field stretcher for whatever the reason is. But let's talk about what your primary responsibilities are. Make positive plays in the return game. Set your offense up as best as you possibly can. Stop making poor decisions. Again, you didn't forget how to return. You didn't forget how to make better decisions. Just need you to go back and channel whatever you had in your rookie year and lose whatever the hell you got going on now, because it feels like you got the yips, and we don't need to see any of that going forward. And while we're on the topic of self-awareness, I mentioned this earlier in the 5. really and truly, my hope is that Greg Roman and the rest of the coaching staff had a meeting of the minds. Like, what exactly did you do during this bye week? I mean, I believe in consistency, but not when the commitment is to futility. Did Harbaugh and company attribute the overall offensive drop-off the last two games strictly to injuries, or did they actually go deep under the hood for an honest assessment, like, of the collective? Nothing would be more reminiscent of regimes past than to bank on the return of injured players and, fully expecting them just being present and on the field is what's going to turn your team around overall. I choose to believe that that won't be the case until proven otherwise. But ultimately, I'm going to trust in Jim Harbaugh to right the ship. And again, the team is 2-2. So it sounds really crazy to say right the ship because they're not exactly a losing franchise, especially not by record this season. But 2-2 is absolutely underwhelming when you think about a team that's in transition, learning new offense. The defense is definitely ahead of the curve. You have to give them an opportunity to kind of get their bearings. And yeah, you definitely need some of these key components back because you were counting on them in order to make the offense hum. But for the time being, if guys are out, you've got to have a plan B. Now, I know even your plan Bs can be affected when certain things like poor discipline with regard to penalties comes into play. But ultimately, you got to sort all those out. Guys have to focus and be on one accord because when you're down some of these key components, the margin for error is much smaller. So at this point, I feel like the Chargers are going to come out and really battle in this game against the Broncos. I do believe it'll be low scoring right now. I have the Chargers pulling it out 17-13, somewhere around there. But kind of sort of feels like the first team to 17 is going to pull this one out. Hate playing at Mile High, but we got to get beyond this traveling up there and losing thing because I don't care about the altitude. I know it's hard to play in. I get that. Cannot be easy. Your lungs probably feel like they're on fire out there. But look, man, it's going to be survival of the fittest. And this is another one of those prove it games. Can you overcome adverse circumstances? I'm super happy that both Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater are going to be back in the fold. Well, hopefully Slater. Again, not 100% certain about that. And you got Junior Colson back on the defensive side of the ball. So maybe you can get that rotation going at linebacker again. But this week, I do think it's going to be a big running game week, not even in the way of producing a ton of yardage on the ground, but being able to be effective enough to open up the passing game, specifically in play action, and taking some shots down the field to Ladd McConkey. I want to see Ladd McConkey get his double move on. In the slot, I feel like already the dude is unguardable, and I'm not like giving him the mantle of best slot receiver in the NFL right now, but come season's end, I would not be surprised because dude just has it. Whatever that it is, Ladd's got it. And so, right now, whether or not you want to crown him, he feels like the number one wide receiver. And Justin Herbert's probably going to make him a favorite target going forward. And I have no issue with that whatsoever because right now, technically, feels like the only dependable option. Unless QJ continues to make strides going forward or the Chargers decide that they want to bring in a new wide receiver. Not sure what's going on with Josh Palmer. Hopefully he can be on the field and contribute. But for right now, almost feels like it's a two-man show in the passing game, which ain't great. But y'all know what it is with me, man. We will be here after the game for after hours. I appreciate you tuning in per usual to listen to me rant because this is how I get it out, man. This is somewhat of a venting session for me, almost therapeutic in a sense, but doesn't feel like teams passed. Just working through a couple of, again, kinks in the offense. Defense is still doing their thing. So it's time for the offense to bring their portion to the game, man. Be complimentary. Don't ask the defense to do everything. That's only going to be able to hold up for so long against so many teams. You're going to find yourself having to make some plays here and there and reward their efforts on their side of the ball. So, Tim, looking at you. Offensive line, especially the interior, definitely looking at you. And Greg Roman, pull it together, man. Get your coaching staff collectively to talk about this passing game. Mr. Brady, Mr. Tressman, get your input in there. And hopefully we can make something of this in the next few weeks because, like I mentioned before, we're in a stretch run of the season. If this team's going to make a serious run at the playoffs, it starts now. So, again, catch y'all later. Take it easy. Y'all know what it is, Mr. TOP _FLYT3. And I'm gone.